most creepy Facebook horror stories. It started like any other Tuesday evening. Cerise, exhausted from a long day at work, curled up on her couch, scrolling through Facebook. Just the usual. Checking in on friends, liking a few photos, scrolling through random posts. You know, the typical unwinding routine. She could feel the tension in her shoulders slowly easing. But then, a notification popped up. Someone viewed your profile. She paused. It wasn't a big deal, right? People view your profile all the time. But for some reason, this notification felt off. Emma Hollis. Cerise stared at the name for a long time. It didn't ring any bells. She didn't recognize it at all. Who was this person? She clicked on the notification, feeling a flicker of curiosity, maybe even unease, settle in. But when she looked at the profile, her unease deepened. It was empty, blank. Just a photo of a woman with dark, almost unnatural eyes. A smile that didn't quite reach her face. Everything about it felt wrong. Cerise scrolled through, but there was nothing there. No posts, no friends. Just the eerie profile picture. And a bio that simply read, "Living in the moment." Cerise shivered slightly. Okay, maybe this was just some random account, right? But it kept gnawing at her. Why was this stranger checking her out? How had they found her? She wasn't even active on Facebook lately. Her hand shook slightly as she scrolled down. Why was this person so interested in her? And then, the notifications started flooding in. At first, it was just one like on an old photo, a picture from a birthday party. It felt odd, but it wasn't enough to panic. But then it was another like, and another, and another. The likes were coming so quickly now, one after another. How was this person even seeing her old posts? The hairs on the back of her neck stood up. She checked her privacy settings. Everything was set to private. So how could this stranger be liking photos that she'd shared ages ago? And then the comments came. "What a beautiful photo, Cerise." Cerise blinked. What photo? She hadn't posted anything in weeks. She clicked on the photo and it hit her. It was an old photo, a picture she had posted years ago. Her standing with her friends at a party. That was private, wasn't it? And then more comments. "Such a beautiful dress, Cerise. You look so happy here." Each comment was more personal, more invasive. Each one seemed to be creeping into her mind, twisting around her thoughts. Her heart pounded in her chest. Who was this person? Cerise quickly clicked on the profile again, her mind racing. She had to know who this was, why they were doing this. But every time she clicked on the profile, it looked exactly the same. Blank, empty, no friends, no posts, just that photo. There was nothing to explain any of this, just the growing feeling that someone was watching her. The feeling that Emma wasn't just some random person. This felt too deliberate. Cerise's finger hovered over the block button, but just as she was about to click it, a message notification popped up. Her breath caught. The message was simple. "Hi, Cerise. I've been watching you. You're beautiful." Her heart skipped a beat. She felt the room close in around her. Her body stiffened. She quickly typed out a response, trying to remain calm. "Who is this?" But the message disappeared. Gone. Vanished. Her pulse thudded in her ears. What just happened? She checked her inbox again, but it was empty. As if it had never been there. Was this some kind of joke? But it didn't feel like a joke. This was something else. Something more. She needed to talk to someone. She grabbed her phone, dialed Lily's number, and waited, feeling her chest tighten with every passing second. When Lily answered, Cerise's voice trembled. "Lily, something's happening. Someone I don't know is going through my photos. They've been leaving comments on everything. And now they've sent me a message. It said, 'I've been watching you.'" Lily's voice came through the phone, distant but panicked. "What? Cerise, That's messed up. You need to block them. Block them now. Cerise agreed, trying to calm herself. She clicked on the block button. She would be rid of this strange, creepy person. But when she clicked block, something strange happened. Emma's profile vanished. Just gone. Cerise stared at the screen, blinking in disbelief. Had she imagined it? She checked her notifications again. Nothing. No likes. No comments. Nothing. A sense of relief washed over her. Maybe this was just a weird glitch. Maybe blocking the profile had worked. But as Cerise lay in bed that night, trying to drift off to sleep, she felt a cold wave of dread wash over her. The kind of dread that made her freeze in place. The kind of dread that made every shadow in her room feel alive. She picked up her phone and checked Facebook again. Another notification. Her heart dropped. A friend request. From Emma Hollis. Her breath hitched. How? How was this possible? She clicked on the profile again, and just like before, it was the same. Blank. Empty. That haunting photo. The bio had changed, though. It now read, "I never leave." Her fingers shook as she quickly blocked the profile again. But just like before, it disappeared. Gone. Just like that. Cerise sat there in the darkness, trembling. The room felt colder now. She didn't know how. She didn't know why. But she couldn't shake the feeling that someone, was still watching her. The next morning, Cerise woke up to find another friend request. She ignored it, but it was just the beginning. The requests kept coming. And the comments, the likes, the messages, all from that same profile. And each time she blocked it, the profile vanished. Just like the first time. By now, Cerise was trembling with fear. She tried locking down her privacy settings again, but nothing helped. The messages kept coming. Every time she looked at her phone, the chilling words were there. "I'm always watching." Cerise couldn't take it anymore. The fear had taken over every aspect of her life. She felt like she was living in a nightmare. The messages, the requests, the likes, they were never ending. She was no longer just terrified, she was being haunted. And then, one final message arrived. A message that made Cerise's blood run cold. "I'll always find you." She couldn't escape it. No matter what she did, the silence in her room seemed to swallow her whole. This is the most disturbing Facebook horror story number 2. It was late, far too late, when Niara's phone buzzed. The sound pierced the thick silence in her room, making her jump. It was unexpected, unwanted. Her tired eyes flickered open, and she glanced at the screen, trying to shake off the remnants of sleep. The notification was from someone she didn't know. Who? Her thumb hovered over the message. The name displayed was Cynthia, a name that didn't ring any bells. She'd never heard of anyone named Cynthia. Who was this? With a hesitant breath, she opened it, her fingers trembling ever so slightly. "Niara, I know what you did." Her stomach lurched. What? Her breath caught in her throat. The words were so personal. How did they know her name? How did they know her? But there was no photo, no profile. Just a name and a blank space. And a message that made her skin crawl. Her heart began to race as she quickly typed a response, hoping to get a clue. Who is this? But as she was about to press send, another message came in, before she could even blink. "You're not safe, Niara. You're being watched." Her chest tightened. The words echoed in her mind over and over again, each repetition making her breath feel heavier. She froze. Something didn't feel right. She didn't know why, but she felt as if her very existence was being scrutinized by someone, or something that was so close. A feeling of dread slowly crept over her, like something dark was pressing against her chest. She quickly glanced at the screen again, the blinking cursor in her reply box reminding her that she still hadn't answered. Her fingers hovered nervously over the keyboard. "What do you want from me?" She could feel the tension building in her bones, the silence in her room becoming more suffocating by the second. She pressed send with a shaky finger and waited, but it didn't take long for another message to appear. "It's only a matter of time, Niara. They're out there. They know what you did. They know everything." Her breath faltered. Her palms grew clammy. Everything? What did this mean? What did they know? The words were so heavy. They weighed on her, pressing down on her heart. She swallowed, but it was like she couldn't swallow the lump in her throat, couldn't shake the feeling that she was being drawn into something she couldn't control. What did they know? She didn't know what to make of it. Her thoughts were racing, but everything was too vague, too surreal to piece together. The screen buzzed again. "You're not alone. They're watching you. They know where you are." Her breath hitched. "Who?" She backed away from the phone, glancing around the room. Everything looked normal. Too normal. The quiet was deafening. She didn't want to, but she glanced toward the window. The night outside seemed thick with shadows, like the air itself was holding its breath. The chill in her room seemed colder now. Her skin prickled, goosebumps rising along her arms. Suddenly, her phone vibrated once more. "Don't look outside." Niara froze. The message seemed to stop time itself. "Don't look outside?" She swallowed hard, feeling a knot tighten in her stomach. Her hand shook as she slowly turned her head to look out the window. What if there was something, or someone, out there? Her feet were frozen to the floor, her pulse pounding in her ears as she took a careful step closer to the curtain. Her mind screamed at her not to look, but she couldn't stop herself. Her fingers gripped the edge of the curtain. She pulled it back just enough to peer outside. Nothing. But the stillness of the street felt unnerving. The streetlights were dim and distant, the world outside cast in shadow. It felt wrong. A faint movement caught her eye, a flicker in the darkness. She blinked, her heart thudding harder against her ribs. But when she looked again, there was nothing. No one. Only the empty street stretching out in the dim light. She pulled the curtain back quickly, but the feeling of being watched didn't go away. The air seemed heavier now, thicker. She stumbled back from the window, trying to steady her breath. But then the phone buzzed again. "You're not safe, Niara. They're here." Her hands were trembling. Who? Who was here? Who was watching? Her chest tightened even more. She couldn't breathe, couldn't focus. She felt like she was trapped in this room, this tiny space, surrounded by an invisible force. Panic surged through her, the suffocating pressure growing. She couldn't think straight anymore. She backed away from the window, glancing nervously around the room, her thoughts too jumbled to make sense of anything. The phone buzzed again. "They're watching you. They're closer than you think." Every word cut through her, like ice. Who? Who was watching her? She closed her eyes, trying to push the overwhelming fear aside, but it clung to her, gnawing at her insides. She could hear the faintest noise, a low hum in the distance. Or was it in her head? She wasn't sure. Her mind was spiraling, desperate for answers, for anything to stop the overwhelming terror. A thought rushed through her mind. What if it's someone she knows? Her phone buzzed once again. She didn't want to look, but the fear was stronger than her will. Her thumb trembled as she unlocked the screen. And then it happened. A photo, a picture, of her room. But it wasn't taken from inside the room. The angle was all wrong. It was taken from the outside. Her breath caught in her throat as her eyes skimmed over the image. There was no mistaking it. That was her room. A chill gripped her. The photo was grainy, blurry, but there was no mistaking it. It was her room, and something was moving in the corner, something she couldn't quite make out. A wave of nausea hit her. She backed up, her breath shallow and panicked. Her hands were slick with sweat as she tried to make sense of what she had just seen. The phone buzzed again. Her thumb shook uncontrollably as she reached for it. "You can't hide." Her heart was pounding in her chest now, the words drilling into her. Her vision blurred, the fear almost choking her. What did they mean? Who was this? The phone buzzed again. She was out of breath now, heart hammering. She couldn't think. She couldn't move. It felt like the walls were closing in. "You'll never escape." She scrambled to her feet, her breath quick and shallow, and ran. Ran without thinking, without knowing. She didn't stop to think about why. She didn't stop to look behind her. She just ran. Her mind was screaming, but there was no voice, no sound. Only the echo of her footsteps. The terror. The cold, suffocating terror that clung to her as she ran farther and farther from everything she knew. But no matter how fast she ran, the fear never left. And she knew, deep down, that it never would. This is Very Scariest Facebook Horror Story number 3. It all started on a quiet Friday evening. Kira was sitting on the couch, tired, her eyes half closed from exhaustion. The hum of the TV was just background noise. She wasn't watching it, not really. She was mindlessly scrolling through Facebook, her thumb swiping over the screen, not paying attention to anything in particular. It was one of those nights, the kind where everything felt still. And that's when it happened. Her thumb froze. She saw a post that made her heart skip. Amy Jones. "You're never alone when you're with me." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. The photo that came with it was what made Kira's blood run cold. It wasn't just any photo. It was a picture of her apartment. Her living room. But Kira hadn't posted any pictures like that. She hadn't shared her location. Not recently. Not ever. Her breath caught in her throat. She squinted at the image. The angle was strange, too. It was taken from the far corner of the room, almost as if someone had been standing there, watching her. But Kira hadn't noticed anyone. She dropped her phone onto the couch, heart pounding. She shook her head, trying to push the creeping dread away. It was probably a mistake, right? Maybe a glitch in Facebook's algorithm. A weird coincidence? But her mind couldn't stop racing. Amy? Why now? After all these years, after not hearing from her in so long, why was she suddenly this? Kira clicked on Amy's profile, hoping for some sort of explanation. She scanned the page, but nothing seemed out of place, except one thing. Amy's profile picture was a blank silhouette, just a shadow. No face, no details. Nothing. What the hell? She checked her own privacy settings again. Everything's locked down. Her photos were set to private. She was careful about that stuff, so how had Amy even gotten this picture? And more importantly, why? Her stomach twisted. Kira slammed her phone face down on the couch, trying to shake off the unease. But it didn't work. The feeling of being watched wouldn't leave. Hours passed. The whole time, Kira could feel the weight of that photo, that message, sitting heavily in her mind. Then, just as she was about to drift off to sleep on the couch, her phone buzzed again. Amy Jones. "You're not alone anymore." Her heart skipped. She hesitated before opening the message, the anxiety rising in her chest like an unseen pressure. There was another photo. This time, it was worse. It was a picture of her bedroom door, taken from the hallway outside. Kira's blood went cold. She knew that hallway. She had passed it just a few hours ago on her way to get ready for bed. She hadn't seen anyone there. But there it was. That photo showing the exact spot she had stood earlier. Had someone been there? Had someone been watching her? Her breath quickened. She bolted up from the couch, checking her locks, checking the windows. Everything was secure, just like it always was. But why was she still so scared? Kira's hands shook as she checked everything again. Her phone buzzed again, but she couldn't bring herself to look. She tried to convince herself that it was just a coincidence. A weird, freaky coincidence, but just a coincidence. Still, the thought didn't ease the knot in her stomach. Then there it was again, the sound of her phone buzzing. She swallowed hard, her throat dry. Her finger hovered above the screen. She wasn't sure if she even wanted to know, but curiosity, fear, pushed her forward. She opened it. Amy Jones. You're not alone anymore. It was a link, a live stream. Kira clicked on it without thinking, though her heart hammered in her chest. The video was blurry at first, just static and fuzz. But then, the image cleared. And that's when Kira's breath caught in her throat. There was a figure, a person, just barely visible in the shadows. They were standing in front of her building. The video wasn't from her apartment, but it was from outside. They were coming closer. Kira's skin prickled. She couldn't move. She just stared at the screen, the horror building in her chest. Was this real? Or was she losing her mind? The figure in the video moved slowly, creeping closer to the door. Kira could almost feel the presence, as if the figure was moving toward her. Toward her. This couldn't be happening. Then, just like that, the video cut out. The feed disappeared, and Kira was left with nothing but an empty screen. Her heart was in her throat and her breath was shallow. She felt dizzy, nauseous. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know where to go. She stared at the screen, frozen in fear. But then, the final message came through. A friend request, from Amy Jones. Kira's fingers hovered over the accept button, though every fiber of her being screamed not to touch it. She clicked it. And then, nothing. The request disappeared. The message blinked on the screen. It said, unfriended. Kira's breath hitched. Her mind raced. She sat there for a long time, staring at her phone. Was this some sort of sick joke? Was it real? She didn't know. But one thing was certain. She couldn't escape the feeling that Amy was still watching her. The next morning, Kira woke up with a pounding headache. She checked her Facebook, but Amy's profile was gone. Everything was gone. The posts, the messages, all wiped clean. But there was one final notification. Amy Jones. You're not alone anymore. Kira slammed her phone down, tears welling up in her eyes. What was happening? The requests kept coming. Each time she blocked Amy, another request would appear. A constant reminder that she was being watched, that she wasn't alone. Every night, Kira would check her phone. And every night, without fail, the request would be there. No matter what she did. No matter how many times she hit ignore. Amy's face never appeared. But she was always there, watching,